Hey guys, Ryan here. Tonight we drift into a world of sugary effervescence, where the hiss of carbonation sounds like a distant waterfall in a hidden jungle, and the gleaming bottle glistens under neon lights. You probably won't survive this if you think soda just comes from a vending machine. Before we settle in, if this resonates with you, hit like and subscribe only if you're here for more of this vibe. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what your local time is. Gently lower the lights, switch on that soothing fan breeze, and come with me as we unwind into tonight's adventure. You press your palm against a cold glass bottle in your mind, feeling the chill seep into your fingertips as you imagine that first fizzy sip. It's a dream as old as modern bottling itself. Back in 1899, Coca-Cola began to be bottled outside of pharmacies, launching an era of mass-market soft drinks. You sense the thrill of possibility. Your own concoction could one day stand shoulder to shoulder with those giants. But before you can call it your brew, you need a concept so clear it tingles like the first pop of a cantab. You wander through your living room turned lab, sketching flavor profiles on napkins. Maybe you crave a lavender ginger twist that whispers floral daydreams. Or perhaps you imagine a tamarind lime spark that jolts the senses like a surprise text from an old friend. Scholars debate whether niche flavors sell better than familiar ones, but you suspect both camps have a point. Choice is power, after all. As you outline your niche, you hear distant echoes of root beer stands from the Prohibition era, when soda fountains served as social hubs. That bit of mainstream history reminds you that soda isn't just a drink, it's a ritual. Meanwhile, you stumble on a quirky tidbit. Some early experimental sodas were sweetened with birch bark extract, producing an earthy note that tasted like a forest floor inviting you for a hike. You chuckle, earthy soda, who orders that? But novelty has always drawn crowds, and maybe an earthy surprise could become your signature twist. You tap into market research, scrolling through consumer forums in half-asleep haze. The numbers whisper that craft soda sales climbed by nearly 16% last year, riding a wave of health-conscious bubbles and Instagram-friendly labels. Yet in that digital glow, you remember the odd practice of Victorian soda makers adding crushed pearls to impress wealthy clientele, a fringe tidbit so bizarre it feels like a bedtime story come alive. You tuck that away for later brand lore. Next, you map your audience like constellations on a dark sky, college students craving midday pick-me UPS, parents seeking fun but safe treats for kids, late-night insomniacs needing a sweet companion. You breathe in their hopes and frustrations. Remember that sense of longing for a midnight snack that doesn't wreck your tomorrow? That shared feeling is your secret ingredient. You draft a mission statement on a sticky note to craft moments of joy, one effervescent drop at a time. It glows under the fan's light breeze as you whisper commitments to quality, sustainability, and playfulness. You're not just selling soda, you're selling tiny celebrations. A soft chuckle escapes as you recall adding sea salt to watermelon soda just for kicks, only to have friends declare it a taste of summer twilight. You note, test everything, but trust your gut. 3 light jokes later, did you really try vinegar soda? You realize that the hardest part of dreaming up a soda brand is believing your own vision. After all, if you can't convince yourself, who else will join the soda parade? And so, with notebook in hand and imagination buzzing like 1,000 tiny bubbles, you set the stage for your fizzy kingdom. The first sip is always the sweetest, but the dream behind it, that's where your journey truly begins. You drift from the glow of that initial concept into the murky world of sourcing, where every drop counts and impurities lurk like tiny saboteurs. You stand at the edge of a crystalline spring in your mind, watching water trickle over smooth stones. This same mineral-rich source fueled the first commercial soda fountain in Philadelphia back in 1767, when apothecarists realized that fizzy water could cure more than just a headache. You reach down, cup your hands, and taste that purity, knowing that your soda's soul begins here. Your quest starts with water. Tap water just won't cut it. You sample municipal supplies and wince at the chlorine tang, then chase local artesian wells, each promising a distinct mineral profile. Opinions differ on whether ultra-purified water or mineral-heavy spring sources yield the best mouthfeel, but you decide to explore both avenues like a scientist mixing potions. You scribble notes, revive memory with limestone notes versus smooth finish from reverse osmosis. Next, sweeteners beckon like tempting sirens. Cane sugar carries the classic sweetness of southern refineries, while beet sugar hints at an earthier backbone. Back in 1886, pharmacists first sweetened sodas with coca leaf extracts and cola nut infusions, setting a precedent for experimentation. You weigh options: high fructose corn syrup for cost efficiency, honey for floral undertones, even coconut sugar for a hint of tropical twilight. Each choice shifts your brew's narrative, conjuring images of sun-drenched fields or rainforest shadows. In the corner of your makeshift lab, you spot a jar labeled agave nectar. You remember that the Aztecs fermented agave sap into pulque centuries ago, an ancient precursor to tequila. It tickles your curiosity. What if you channel that agave spirit into a subtle agave lime soda, evoking Mesoamerican fiestas in every sip? You imagine your soda at a Dia de los Muertos stand, uncanny yet inviting. Flavoring agents arrive like colorful characters at a carnival. You sniff powdered fruit extracts, tangy yuzu, mellow passion fruit, smoky lapsang souchong tea dust, and wonder which will jolt your formula to life. You plunge your tongue into an experimental drop, yuzu hibiscus fizz that blossoms like sunrise in your mouth. It's a revelation, and you jot summer sunrise next to that napkin sketch. Not every exotic ingredient behaves. Once, you tried infusing soda with powdered blue spirulina and ended up with an alien green hue that made friends question their life choices. Yet that vivid blue became a small viral sensation on social media, proof that bold oddities can spark conversation. As your cart overflows with powders, syrups, and extracts, you check ethics and sustainability. You source organic vanilla beans from Madagascar, but pause, some shipments hitchhike endangered species. You choose ethically harvested beans certified by the Rainforest Alliance. You realize sourcing isn't just about flavor, it's about responsibility. One recent survey found 72% of consumers prefer brands with transparent supply chains, though some say that can be more marketing than substance. Your kitchen counters crawl with vials labeled with ginger juice, cinnamon tincture, and smoked pear concentrate. You tick off each origin story like a travelogue: ginger root steeped in Himalayan mist, cinnamon bark from Sri Lankan highlands, pears smoked over cherry wood embers in a French orchard. Each promises narrative richness, like collecting stamps in a passport of taste. You pause at the sweeteners again: honey from Midwestern hives, vanilla-infused agave, and maple syrup from Vermont's sugaring season. The thought of a golden-hued soda topped with a honeycomb silhouette on the label makes you smile. You imagine late-night bees buzzing softly in your garden and capture that warmth in your flavor bank. Amid chaos, you build a sourcing spreadsheet on your phone: supplier name, Origin, cost per liter of concentrate, lead time, sustainability score. It's organized mania, and you nickname it Operation Bubble. You know logistic nightmares await, shipping fragile glass jars, negotiating minimum orders, staving off import tariffs. You scribble in the margin, if only I could bottle unicorn tears, sourcing would be poetic. Finally, you circle back to water, your constant companion. You reserve 3 samples for formal lab testing, 1 from a natural spring, 1 from purified municipal, and 1 a custom mineral blend. You plan blind taste tests under the soft hum of your bedroom fan, enlisting friends to judge. As you drift to sleep, those springs gush with flavor notes, honey drips in slow motion, and a phantom soda bottle rises on a misty mountaintop. You're not just sourcing ingredients, you're collecting stories, every sip a narrative thread waiting to be woven into your brand's tapestry. You cradle your tasting spoon like a conductor's baton, ready to orchestrate flavors that dance on the tongue. The art of crafting a signature recipe begins with small batch experimentation, a tradition stretching back to 1772 when Schweppes first commercialized carbonated mineral water in London. You imagine that original fizz whispering through your veins as you dissolve carbon dioxide into your own creation. You set up 3 glass carafes on your countertop, each filled with your chosen water sample. Into carafe A, you stir in 1 cup of cane sugar, in carafe B, an equal measure of honey, in carafe C, a blend of cane sugar and agave nectar. You hear the faint hiss as carbonation peps through the sweet base, soundtracking your late-night ritual like raindrops on a tin roof. Your first goal, find the perfect balance between sweetness and snap. You pour each sample into frosty goblets and swirl the liquid, watching bubbles cling to the sides before rising in lazy spirals. You taste goblet A, pure, classic sweetness, but edges toward cloying. Goblet B, floral complexity, though the honey's aroma dominates. Goblet C, intriguing interplay, but slightly thin on the body. You jot 1.0:1.25 sugar to agave next to each note. Next comes the flavor accent, where most signature sodas distinguish themselves. You have in front of you jars of citrus oils, tinctures of mint, and powders of rose petals. You drop an essential oil dab into a shot glass, then top with carbonated water, swirling. The grapefruit oil fizzes aggressively, sharp and almost savory at the edges. You squint as the bright zip cuts through the sweetness of Goblet C, promising a lively sip. You recall a quirky tidbit from early 20th century craft sodas. Some small bottlers infused their recipes with crushed coral calcium to mimic ocean breezes, marketing it as seaside soda. It never caught on widely, but the idea tickles your creative impulse. What if a pinch of edible sea salt could heighten your lime zest soda's brightness? You sprinkle a granular eyebrow's worth into Goblet C. The new taste shimmers like morning light on water. But you're not solely playing with flavors, you're refining carbonation levels too. You've rigged a mini carbonator on your kitchen counter, calibrating pressure from 30 to 60 psi. Sample 1 at 40 psi feels rounded, sample 2 at 55 psi crackles like crushed diamonds in your mouth. Preferences vary, some consumers favor a gentle fizz, while soda aficionados chase that sharp pop. Experts remain split over whether higher pressure truly enhances mouthfeel or just accelerates bubble collapse, but you decide to channel the debate into your recipe logs. Now comes sweet testing, blind trials with friends. You fill identical cups, blindfold your first volunteer. and invite them to sip. They inhale, pause, then nod vigorously at sample 2. It's vibrant, they murmur, like summer rain. You record preferences meticulously, even as your roommate complains about the fan interrupting their concentration. Their feedback tells you that the honey agave blend with grapefruit oil and a hint of salt at 55 psi is winning hearts. With your base recipe locked, you start layering secondary notes, spices and botanicals to add depth. You weigh out ground cardamom and stir it with simple syrup. You steep lemongrass in hot water, then chill and mix. Each addition must complement, not compete. You trial a dash of smoked paprika in a barrel-aged cola riff, and it conjures images of campfire nights, but the group consensus is that it strays too far from the brand's playful spirit. You shelve that idea in your flavor archive. In the corner, your pH meter blinks across readings. Acidity levels are crucial, too low, and your soda tastes flat, too high, and it burns the tongue. You aim for a pH around 3.2, reminiscent of classic root beer profiles, adjusting with citric and malic acids. The meter settles at 3.18, close enough. You note how acid blends differ. Citric is bright and zesty, malic lingers with a tart apple tartness. Your recipe incorporates both for layered complexity. While perfecting taste, you refine your recipe documentation. You draft a standard operating procedure, water source, sweetener ratio, flavor extracts, carbonation pressure, chilling time, and fill temperature. You realize that replicability matters as much as creativity. Early Coca-Cola records from the 1890s were jealously guarded, but you embrace transparency. Should a small batch blow up on quality control, you want the steps laid bare for swift correction. Then comes packaging compatibility testing. You pour sample into glass bottles and crown cap them, then into aluminum cans. You let them rest for 24 hours, watching for sediment or foaming over. One batch in can shows slight haze, likely from the rose petal powder. You troubleshoot a finer filter mesh or alternative rose distillate. Another note to your recipe. You pause, sipping the latest iteration as citrus and gentle fizz dance on your tongue. You remember that early soda pioneers experimented with carbonated beer, then removed the alcohol entirely, birthing the soda world we know. That bit of mainstream history reminds you how experimentation can steer entire industries. Finally, you step back and close your eyes, envisioning production day, vat steaming with sugar water, hoses hissing as Co fills each bottle, labels adhering in perfect alignment. This signature recipe is no longer a scribble on a napkin, it's a living formula ready to bubble into reality. You place your tasting spoon beside the pH meter and let the quiet hum of late-night creation lull you into anticipation. You let the quiet hum of late-night creation guide you as you slip into the world of branding and bottle design, where every curve and color whispers a story to the thirsty eye. You remember that in 1886, Charles Hires introduced the iconic root beer bottle with a scalloped rim, creating one of the first mass-marketed soda identities, proof that a simple silhouette can echo through generations. You trace that legacy in your mind, imagining your own bottle shape making late-night fridge raids feel like secret ceremonies. Your first thought drifts to color palettes. You swirl paint swatches under the fan breeze, muted pastels for a dreamy vibe, bold primaries for a playful punch. You imagine neon pink soda illuminating a dim room like an urban sunset, or moss green labels conjuring forest canopy memories. You pause at a chartreuse green swatch and grin, This could be the visual equivalent of that tamarind lime zing you perfected last night. Shape, however, is where things get tactile. You hold a prototype bottle mold to fit the curve of your hand, feeling how it nestles between thumb and fingers. Scholars debate whether bottle shape influences taste perception, but you're convinced that a slight embossing along the neck can heighten the anticipation of that first sip. It's almost like stroking the spine of a well-loved book before you read the first line. You dig up a quirky tidbit. In the 1950s, a small California bottler experimented with square bottles to stand out on diner shelves, only to find they rattled during transport, sounding like marbles in a box. You chuckle softly, picturing soda bottles clattering down Route 66, alerting everyone within earshot that soda had arrived. That playful failure reminds you that bold moves sometimes rattle the industry, literally. Next, you consider typography. You lay out letter forms on your desk, elegant serif scripts that nod to vintage apothecary labels, and rounded sans serifs that feel modern and approachable. You imagine your logo dancing across the glass like a friendly wave, a bespoke font that hints at bubbles rising, each letter cap accentuated with a tiny dot. It could be subtle enough to feel refined, yet distinct enough to catch the corner of your eye in a crowded cooler. Label materials draw you into another layer of texture. Glossy vinyl labels feel slick and immediate, like a droplet on polished stone, while textured paper labels evoke handcrafted artisanal notes. You weigh the pros and cons. Vinyl wards off condensation on ice-filled buckets, but paper tells a rustic story. Maybe a hybrid approach, paper label sealed under a clear vinyl overlay, could marry both worlds. You riff on bottle closures. Crown caps carry a nostalgic snap, conjuring soda fountains and diner stools padded in worn leather. Screw caps, by contrast, promise convenience for modern grab-and-go lifestyles. You imagine a screw cap with a subtle ridge pattern that echoes your brand's bubble motif, functional, but also a sensory detail that tangles with your fingertips like a whispered secret. In a haze of creative momentum, you sketch three concepts, one with an elongated neck and minimalist label band, one squat and stout with a wraparound illustration of dancing citrus slices, and one tall and tapered with debossed bubbles spiraling upward. You picture these designs on crowdfunding pages, collecting pre-orders from early adopters who can't wait to tote your soda to rooftop parties. You pause to sample a sip from your prototype in a clear glass, imagining the label's color refracted through the liquid, glowing like a street lamp through mist. It welcomes you, and you realize that your brand identity isn't just visuals, it's the anticipation you stir before each effervescent encounter. Then you stumble on a fringe tidbit. A 19th century soda maker once embedded tiny pectin beads under bottle labels that would dissolve if the soda had gone flat, a primitive freshness indicator that fizzled out with modern refrigeration. You tuck that idea into your mind's toolbox, pondering whether a subtle color-changing ink could signal droop-free fizz to today's tech-savvy drinker. Your phone buzzes with a message from a designer friend. They mocked up a 3D render of your elongated neck bottle in frosted glass, complete with your bubble dot script. You swivel in your chair to admire it, the gentle whir of your fan blending with the glow of your screen. It's almost hypnotic, like breathing in that first carbonated exhale. You finish by drafting a brand story, born from midnight inspirations. This soda is your companion for quiet moments and shared smiles. You tuck in notes about your commitment to eco-friendly glass and recyclable labels, nodding to modern consumers who crave authenticity and sustainability. One survey suggested 68% of buyers are drawn to brands with green credentials, Even if skeptics warn it can feel like greenwashing without real action, but you're determined to walk the talk. As you stretch a final swatch of label around a bottle, you sense the complete alignment of form and flavor. The bottle design isn't just packaging, it's the silent ambassador of your brand, one that will flicker under fridge lights and sit warmed by curious hands at outdoor concerts. You stand and hold that crafted silhouette to the soft fan breeze, letting it spin gently in your grasp. Tomorrow, you'll refine the mold. Tonight, you savor this vision of your fizz-filled future. You ease into the world of paperwork and fine print, where every placeholder initial and stamped signature shapes the life of your soda. You picture the year 1906, when the Pure Food and Drug Act first forced soda makers to list ingredients, transforming secret formulas into transparent labels. You imagine that shift like a beam of morning light cutting through mist, revealing what really bubbles beneath. First, you need a business license. You picture yourself at the City Hall counter, sliding photocopies of your ID and registration forms across a polished surface. You feel the weight of each paper clip, this official acknowledgement that your fizzy dream is no longer just a daydream. You remember that early soda fountains required apothecary permits to sell carbonated beverages, and those same permits paved the way for neighborhood soda shops that doubled as community hubs. Next, you tackle health department regulations. You envision a stern inspector stepping into your production area, clipboard in hand, white coat crisp under fluorescent lights. You guide them through your sanitized surfaces, stainless steel vats gleaming like polished armor. You explain your cleaning protocols, a cycle of food-grade sanitizer, rinses at 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and regular microbial testing. You recall that in 1911, a typhoid outbreak traced back to contaminated soda syrups prompted stricter sanitation standards, proof that thorough cleaning can be as vital as perfect flavor. Labeling requirements loom as well. You huddle over your label proof on the computer screen, verifying that the nutrition panel lists calories, sugars, and caffeine content per serving size. You double-check the allergen declaration, no hidden nuts or dairy, and draft health warnings for excessive caffeine. You remember that during the 1970s, some novelty sodas included radium-charged labels that glowed in the dark, leading to bizarre health scares and eventual bans. That fringe tidbit makes you smile at the contrast. Today's warnings feel almost gentle by comparison. Bottled water standards overlap with soda regulations. You find yourself reading the Code of Federal Regulations, which treats carbonated beverages like any other packaged drink. You note maximum allowable levels for lead, arsenic, and other trace metals. You schedule third-party lab tests on each water batch, ensuring your spring source remains a source of pride, not liability. Late-night online forums shout about compliance costs, but you remind yourself that consumer safety trumps shortcuts every time. Zoning laws invite another layer of complexity. Your ideal production space sits within a repurposed warehouse district, red brick walls whispering of industrial heritage. You confirm that the address permits food manufacturing and secures a certificate of occupancy. You imagine forklifts humming down the street and delivery trucks rumbling in for pallet drops. You file for a waste disposal permit too, planning grease traps and recycling bins for glass and cans. Then comes trademark registration. You envision your brand name etched into the Federal Registry, making it inviolable territory. You reserve your logo as well, protecting that bubble dot script from copycats. You remember that one popular cola name was trademarked in the late 19th century before the brand was even bottled, a bold move that cemented its identity long before mass advertising hit full stride. You compose careful application answers, ensuring your mark is distinct and non-descriptive. Environmental regulations weave through every decision. You draft a sustainability report detailing glass recycling targets and water usage metrics. You calculate that for every liter of soda produced, you'll reclaim at least 80% of the rinse water through recirculation systems. You note that the first beer breweries experimented with water reuse as early as the 1600s, highlighting that mindful resource management is nothing new. It feels fitting that your soda lineage embraces those roots. Permits for signage and events round off your obligations. You plan a launch event under city ordinance, reserving public space and securing noise permits. You draft safety plans for outdoor tastings, from crowd control to first aid kits stocked with electrolyte packets. You feel a quiet thrill imagining neon banners fluttering in spring breezes and curious passers-by sipping your tamarind lime blend under open skies. Throughout this maze of regulations, you keep a binder labeled Legal Lava, its spine cracked from late-night readings. Inside, you tab sections on food safety, environmental law, intellectual property, and event permits. You circle deadlines in red ink and set calendar alerts for renewals. You've heard horror stories of brands shuttered by a missed renewal notice or overlooked lab report, and you vow to stay ahead of every due date. Amid the paperwork, you discover a curious footnote. During World War II, some soda producers were allowed to use wartime sugar substitutes under special government waivers, resulting in flavors so odd they're now collectors' curiosities. You tuck that piece of trivia into your narrative, imagining your heirs one day recounting how you navigated regulatory swaps and ingredient rationing. By the time you close your binder, the stack of completed forms towers alongside your recipe notebook. You lean back, letting the soft fan breeze carry away your tension. The path through regulations feels like a rite of passage, each stamp, each lab result, each permit a badge that proves your soda belongs in the world. You switch off the desk lamp and trace a finger along your label proof one last time, picturing it alive on a store shelf. Tomorrow, you'll mail those final applications, setting this bureaucratic journey into motion. For now, you drift towards sleep knowing that compliance may not be fizzy, but it's the backbone that upholds every delightful bubble you pour. You step into the cavernous warehouse bathed in dawn's pale light, where rows of stainless steel tanks stand like silent sentinels awaiting your command. Here, your soda will graduate from kitchen curiosities to production-ready streams of effervescence. You recall that in 1894, Hires Root Beer opened one of the first large-scale bottling plants in Philadelphia, complete with steam-powered mixers that roared like mechanical beasts. You can almost hear the distant rumble as you position your own mixers and pumps. Your first planning task is equipment layout. You map the flow from raw ingredient storage to mixing tanks, carbonation chambers, and finally to the filling line. It's like choreographing a dance. Water barrels pirouette toward filters, sweetener silos glide next to mixing vats, and conveyors hum beneath filling nozzles. You sketch the layout on graph paper, remembering that early breweries used gravity-fed systems, simple yet elegant, and consider whether your setup should mimic that age-old wisdom. Next, you select mixing vessels. You test a 500-liter stainless steel tank with internal agitators that slice through viscosity like a knife through cream. You run a trial blend, watching sugar syrup swirl into water in hypnotic vortices, the motor's low hum blending with the warehouse's morning quiet. In the corner, a 200-liter pilot tank waits for small batch tweaks, ensuring you can refine recipes without halting the main line. Carbonation equipment beckons like a mysterious contraption. You examine a plate and frame carbonator, its gleaming plates connected by hoses that glisten under fluorescent tubes. You hook up tanks regulated to your ideal 55 psi, then watch as bubbles flood into a test sample. You remember that in the 1950s, soda producers used ice-cooled carbonators that required hand-stoking with block ice, an archaic ritual you admire for its hands-on charm but gladly bypass for modern temperature controls. Bottling partners appear on your radar next. You vet several co-packers, facilities that will fill, cap, and label your bottles under contract. You tour one plant, inhaling the scent of sanitized floors and overhearing the steady thunk of crown caps sealing hundreds of bottles per minute. You note each partner's minimum order requirements. Some demand 5,000 cases per run, others start at 1,000. You weigh cost versus flexibility, knowing that small brands often struggle with high minimums. Your own filling line deserves attention too. You position a gravity filler calibrated for 330 milliliters bottles, its nozzles descending in a synchronized ballet. You run a test batch, watching liquid fill each bottle to the exact shoulder mark before a gentle puff of clears foam. You adjust fill speed and headspace to prevent overflow or flat spots. It's precise work, too fast, and foam overflows, too slow, and bottles sit half empty. Each adjustment feels like tuning a vintage guitar, where slight tweaks bring harmony. Filtration and cleaning in place, CIP systems demand both engineering and ritual. You install a CIP skid with spray balls inside each tank, connected to a loop of pipes carrying caustic solution, rinse water, and acid sanitizers. You program the cycle: hot caustic wash, warm water rinse, acid rinse, final rinse, and air purge. You'll run this cycle daily, ensuring no microbial squatters threaten your soda's purity. You smile at the contrast to your kitchen days, when a quick scrub in the sink seemed enough. Packaging stations glimmer at the far end of the hall. You align label applicators, capper heads, and case erectors. You hang test labels, your moss green design with bubble dot script, on sample bottles, letting them whirl under the applicator arm. They align perfectly, then slip into cardboard carriers ready for shipping. You imagine these carriers stacked on pallets, bound for coolers and craft shops across the city. Forklifts weave through aisles during setup, delivering raw materials and picking up finished pallets. You coordinate with warehouse staff, lining up buffer zones for incoming glass bottles and outgoing cases. You designate quality control points, one post-mixing, another post-carbonation, and a final sampling station after packaging. At each point, a trained eye will inspect bricks levels, carbonation pressure, fill height, and label placement. You draft inspection checklists, embedding them in bulletproof binders. In one corner, you install a refrigerated holding room. You know that chilling soda before packaging preserves carbonation by reducing gas solubility fluctuations. You park rows of pallets in this cold vault, where bottles rest at 4 degrees Celsius, humming with anticipation. You recall that early bottlers sometimes lost entire shipments to warm storage, watching fizz escape like vanished dreams. You vow your chillers will never betray you. You pause and explore a quirky note in your planner. A tiny mole inside a 1920s California bottling plant reputedly gnawed through hoses for fun, causing midnight panic and flat soda aplenty. You laugh into the warehouse's echo and add rodent proofing to your to-do list, foil-sealed hoses and sealed storage for dry goods. Finally, you conduct a full dry run, from water intake to case stacking, every motor churning and pump priming in smooth succession. You stand back, arms folded, as conveyor belts glide bottles forward and labelers affix your logo precisely. You listen for any off notes, the flutter of a loose label or the hiss of an unsealed cap, and mark adjustments. When the trial ends, you collect samples from various pallets, sipping cool tamarind lime fizzy perfection under the hum of industrial fans. You feel both gratitude and exhilaration. Your laboratory experiments have become a tangible stream of soda rolling off the line. Tomorrow, you'll refine throughput rates and finalize partner agreements, but tonight, you savor the transition from dream to factory reality. You cradle a finished case of bottles in your hands, feeling the surprisingly hefty weight that marks the beginning of a great adventure, getting your soda into the world. You picture the late 19th century, when soda distributors first loaded wooden crates onto steam locomotives, sending effervescent treasures across states and sparking roadside soda stands at every whistle stop. That pioneering spirit hums through your fingertips as you plan packaging lines and carve out distribution routes. Your packaging line starts with cases, sturdy corrugated boxes stamped with your moss green logo and bubble dot script. You tuck 24 bottles snugly inside mold cardboard partitions, each bottle separated by dividers that cushion against jostles. You run your finger along the open edge of a case, noting how the fluted cardboard cradles the glass like a cozy bed. Modern algorithms can predict crush strength, but you rely on old-school drop tests, a carefully measured 18-inch fall onto a rubber mat, ensuring bottles survive without fracturing. Opinions differ on whether automated drop testing or human-handled trials yield more reliable data, so you blend both methods like ingredients in your soda. Next, you configure your case erector and sealer. The machine folds flat stock into box shapes, tucks in flaps, and applies a uniform bead of eco-friendly adhesive. You watch as each case emerges with crisp edges, then guides itself onto the conveyor belt for filling. You program the sealer to apply 3 strips of tape for extra security during long hauls, better safe than shaken and fizzed all over the trailer floor. Palletizing follows. You stack cases on a wooden pallet in a Brickley pattern, ensuring weight distribution that keeps the stack from toppling during transit. You feel the pallet's wooden slats underfoot as the forklift's forks glide beneath, lifting the load smoothly. Your team wraps each pallet in clear stretch film, spiraling upwards until bottles are locked in a translucent cocoon. You inspect the wrap tension, mindful that too tight a wrap can squeeze bottles and too loose can let slippage sneak in. Now comes labeling for distribution channels. You print barcode labels that carry GTIN numbers and batch codes. You affix them precisely to each case, scanning with a handheld reader to ensure every pallet's journey is tracked. You imagine warehouse managers in distant cities scanning your pallets into inventory systems, each beep like a heartbeat in the supply chain. With pallets packed, you shift to route planning. You study a digital map, plotting stops at independent grocers, craft food boutiques, and local restaurants that specialize in artisanal fare. You remember that Coca-Cola's first successful expansion beyond the South relied on small soda fountains in drugstores, a grassroots approach that built brand devotion one glass at a time. You follow that lesson, targeting neighborhood markets where store owners know their customers' taste buds by name. Your distribution options range from direct delivery vans to third-party logistics, 3PL partners. You balance cost, speed, and control. A company van grants door-to-door service, perfect for the first 1,000 cases, but demands driver hours and fuel. A 3PL partner promises nationwide reach and scaled pricing, though your soda could become one of many pallets in a mega warehouse. You decide on a hybrid model, direct delivery within a 100-kilometer radius to safeguard quality, and 3PL for longer distances, supplemented by refrigerated freight for warm weather months. You coordinate with a refrigerated carrier for summer routes. You taste the memory of overheated soda bottles that once arrived flat from cross-country treks and vow never to inflict lukewarm disappointment. You load pallets into the temperature-controlled trailer, feeling the cool air whisper through the gaps between wood slats. You secure each pallet with ratchet straps, testing tension until the load feels immovable without extreme force. Meanwhile, you nurture relationships with retailers. You draft persuasive pitch emails, peppered with evocative imagery. Imagine your shelves glowing with moss-green cases of tamarind lime soda, inviting every passerby to pause and taste a momentary escape. You attach sample bottles and event posters, then follow up with courteous calls. You learn that small shop owners value personal visits, so you plan afternoon runs in your branded van, complete with a handwritten thank you note taped to the dashboard for that human touch. You negotiate terms, order minimums, delivery schedules, and return policies for unsold stock. You find one distributor offering a 60-day payment window but charging a restocking fee if cases return unsold, another wants cash on delivery but guarantees no restocking charges. You weigh these trade-offs like flavor notes in your soda and settle on options that align with your cash flow and growth projections. During this process, you uncover a quirky tidbit. In the 1930s, a handful of soda distributors delivered cases by bicycle in city centers, tethering crates to handlebars and pedaling through traffic like carbonated couriers. You grin at the mental image. Perhaps a modern revival of eco-friendly pedal delivery could charm urban customers while cutting emissions. You schedule cold storage cross-docks for your 3PL shipments. You confirm that pallets will transfer from your facility to theirs without thawing, avoiding any risk of premature foaming or flavor drift. You also arrange for quality checks upon receipt. A local partner will open one case per pallet, sample a bottle, and verify carbonation levels. It's a small safeguard that keeps your reputation intact. Back at headquarters, you monitor distribution metrics via dashboard, on-time delivery rates, damage percentages, and sell-through velocity. You notice that cases delivered on Tuesdays at midday enjoy a faster turnover in independent shops, perhaps because store owners restock midweek. You adjust your dispatch schedule accordingly, aiming for that sweet spot between freshness and demand. Finally, you plan for expansion. You mark new territories on your map, neighboring provinces and states that share similar taste profiles. You project shipment volumes and adjust your pallet patterns to accommodate taller shelving configurations used by some warehouse clubs. You scribble notes about local festivals and events where mobile draft bars could feature your soda on tap, creating experimental distribution that pop-up stands can't replicate. You step back and admire the neatly wrapped pallets under the warehouse lights. Each one is a promise of refreshment waiting to be unlocked. The aroma of cardboard mingles with a faint citrus memory lingering in the air, and you smile, knowing that your soda's journey from factory line to fridge shelf is as thoughtfully crafted as the recipe itself. You cradle your smartphone as if it were a megaphone, ready to amplify your soda's voice across the digital soundscape. The art of marketing soda traces back to 1893, when Coca-Cola first showcased its drink at the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, using elegant glass tumblers and live demonstrations to dazzle tens of thousands. You channel that same flair, imagining your tamarind lime creation glinting under exhibit lights or glowing from smartphone screens. Your first move is grassroots sampling. You load a cooler with ice-cold bottles, each one adorned in moss green labels and bubble dot script. You position yourself outside a bustling farmer's market at midday, the sun rippling off your branded canopy. You pop open a bottle for passers-by, the hiss of carbonation cutting through the chatter like a whispered invitation. The first sip hits them with bright citrus and subtle salt, and you watch eyebrows raise before smiles spread. That moment, eyes widening, taste buds awakened, is your real marketing magic. Meanwhile, you film slow-motion clips of amber liquid pouring into cut crystal goblets, droplets clinging to the glass before rolling into the fizz. You slip in close-ups of labels peeking through ice cubes in a stylish bucket, then a time-lapse of friends clinking bottles under string lights. These teasers migrate onto Instagram stories and TikTok, where 15 seconds of sensory delight can ignite thousands of shares. You draft captions that feel like midnight whispers, thirsty for something untamed? Hash Twilight Fizz and schedule them for peak scrolling hours. To broaden reach, you enlist micro-influencers, local food bloggers and late-night vloggers with followings between 5 and 20,000. You send each a sampler kit, 3 bottles, a branded coaster, and a handwritten note tucked inside. You suggest content ideas, a blind tasting, a mixology mashup, or a cozy fireside chat. Some creators post under fairy light filters, sipping your soda with genuine curiosity. Their stories cascade into comments, did someone just reinvent lime soda? Social engagement spikes, though you note some argue over whether influencer tiers drive genuine loyalty or merely fleeting impressions. Next, you plan a launch event that fuses nostalgia and novelty. You transform a repurposed railway car into a pop-up soda speakeasy, draping Edison bulbs overhead and lining benches with velvet cushions. At the entrance, guests receive fizzy mocktails served in vintage Collins glasses, each garnished with a tiny tamarind lime wheel. The air hums with conversation, punctuated by the clink of bottles on metal trays. A slide projector casts sepia-toned images of early soda fountains onto exposed brick walls, a nod to that 1920s era when mixers were pharmacists and soda shops doubled as social salons. Inside, a live muralist paints effervescent bubbles across wooden panels, swirling shades of chartreuse and coral, while a local DJ spins mellow vinyl tracks, crackles and all, for an authentic crackling ambience. You drift among guests, bottle in hand, gauging reactions, collecting anecdotes, and snapping candid shots. You overhear someone remark, "This taste is like summer dusk in a bottle," and you store that phrase as a potential tagline. Digital integrations underscore the experience. QR codes printed on coasters link to an immersive microsite where guests can explore the brand's origin story, view behind-the-scenes videos of recipe trials, and sign up for a first edition bottle drop. You watch analytics climb as visitors linger on pages showcasing your sourcing adventures, Himalayan mist ginger roots and ethically harvested vanilla. The drop-down menu of flavor archives invites them to vote on upcoming seasonal releases, turning consumers into co-creators. To sustain momentum, you roll out a limited midnight batch release, glass flasks filled with a darker, spiced iteration of your soda. You announce it via email newsletter, each subscriber receiving an individual code for priority access. Your open rates are above industry averages, and click-throughs turn into pre-orders that vanish in under an hour. You finalize production plans for small batch runs, balancing exclusivity against eager demand. Outdoor advertising finds its place too. You lease a mural wall in a trendy district, commissioning a local artist to render a giant tamarind lime mosaic intertwined with effervescent trails. At street level, parking meters sport custom toppers shaped like mini soda bottles, each emblazoned with your logo and QR code. Curious pedestrians tap the tops, triggering a brief LED glow and a geotagged link to nearby retailers. That blend of analog whimsy and tech-driven engagement feels like a satisfying pop of fizz. Behind the scenes, you monitor campaign performance on a dashboard, social impressions, sample-to-purchase conversion rates, and hashtag use. You notice samples handed out at late-night food truck festivals convert at nearly double the rate of daytime markets, perhaps because people associate your soda with nocturnal escapades. You adjust your sampling schedule accordingly, reserving prime slots at evening events. Retail partnerships expand your footprint. You negotiate end-cap displays in independent grocers, complete with branded signage and refrigerated coolers bathed in soft green light. You train store staff with quick guides, top 3 talking points, eco-friendly glass, tamarind lime twist, and fan-tested fizz. You visit shops after launch weekends to restock and gather feedback, noticing that shoppers often pause to snap photos of your distinctive bottle design. A quirky tidbit emerges when you learn that a 1950s soda brand paid hot air balloonists to drop leaflets over state fairs, creating airborne buzz quite literally. You toy with hosting a drone-powered banner flight over city marathons, envisioning your logo drifting above runners like a fizzy patron saint. It's ambitious, but you tuck it away for a future stunt. Throughout your campaign, you weave narratives that tie each tactic back to your brand's essence, crafting moments of joy, one effervescent drop at a time. Whether it's a tasting under moonlit skies or a scrolling session punctuated by crisp video clips, every interaction reminds drinkers that your soda isn't just refreshment, it's an invitation to pause, savor, and connect. You end the day reviewing all the media earned, blog mentions, social shares, and local news features. You compile them into a press kit that will fuel the next wave of outreach. As you close your laptop, the hum of your office fan feels like applause, soft, steady, sustaining. You smile, knowing that your marketing campaign has turned that midnight dream into a multi-sensory experience, one bottle at a time. You awaken before dawn, driven by the hum of expansion and the promise of every new case rolling off the line. The challenge now is not just crafting flavors, but ensuring that thousands of bottles taste exactly like that first perfect sip. Back in the 1920s, soda producers responded to Prohibition's thirsty crowds by scaling operations from dozen-bottle runs to assembler-line output, installing automated fillers that could handle up to 10,000 bottles per hour. You can almost hear those machines whirring as you plan your own scale-up. Your first task is to translate your small batch recipe into a production-scale formula. You convene a pilot team at your warehouse's lab, each member armed with calibrated pipettes and digital refractometers. You mix a 5,000-liter batch in a pilot kettle, monitoring sugar concentration at various points. Scholars continue to debate whether incremental dilution in larger tanks alters carbonation dynamics more than pressure variations, but you decide to log every variable: temperature, mixing speed, co-flow rate, so you can fine-tune later. Next, you institute batch tracking and traceability. Every drum of syrup and pallet of bottles receives a QR code linking to your ERP system. You scan each code as ingredients enter mixing vessels, creating a digital breadcrumb trail that stretches from your water source to warehouse shelves. This isn't just bureaucracy. When a competitor faced recall last year over mislabeled ingredients, your phones buzzed with reminders that rigorous tracking can save brands from catastrophe. Quality control stations flourish along the production line. Post-mixing, a technician draws samples to measure Brix, pH, and turbidity. You recall that early Coca-Cola chemists tracked pH shifts to prevent off flavors, a mainstream fact that reminds you consistency has always been the lifeblood of soda empire S. You note that Brix readings must stay within plus or minus 0.2 degrees, any wider, and the sweetness perception shifts noticeably. As the pilot batch moves to carbonation, you install inline gas analyzers that monitor dissolved CO in real time. You compare readings across 3 pressure settings, 50, 55, and 60 psi, plotting trends on your tablet. You see that at 60 psi, bubble retention improves under refrigeration but yields more foaming at fill. You capture these observations, deciding on 55 psi for base production, mirroring the choice that launched Schweppes' widespread popularity in the late 19th century. Your lab coat pockets bulge with logbooks as you approach the bottling line. Here, empty bottles arrive chilled, then pass under filling nozzles calibrated to 330 milliliters exactly. You station a QC inspector with a laser fill height gauge that flags any deviation beyond 1 millimeter. That same attention to fill precision saved a prominent soda brand in 1985 from a consumer lawsuit over underfilled cans, proof that even small errors can spark large headaches. But scaling isn't solely about numbers, it's also about system robustness. You install vibration sensors on your conveyors to detect misalignments before they escalate into bottle breakages. You program alerts for temperature sensors in storage rooms. If the chilling room drifts above 6 degrees Celsius, foam loss accelerates and fizz becomes flat. Those automated prompts feel like an ever-present guard, catching issues while they're still whispers, not roars. Microbiological testing becomes a daily ritual. You carve out space in your pilot lab for petri dishes and incubators. Every week, you plate samples of syrup, mixed batch, and finished soda, watching for colony growth. You recall the fringe tidbit that in the 1950s, one small bottler once discovered wild yeast in a flavor extract, resulting in a lightly alcoholic accident that developed cult status among local drinkers. This quirk reminds you both of the unpredictability of microbes and the potential for happy mistakes, though you'd prefer your brand earns acclaim for consistency, not surprise fermentation. Your expanded team gathers weekly for a quality huddle. You review deviation reports. One batch showed slightly elevated acidity, traced back to a clogged injector. Another batch exhibited tiny foam rings around the cap, signaling dissolved oxygen intrusion during transfer. You treat each anomaly as a case study, no blame, only solutions. You mandate a new maintenance checklist, clean injectors daily, replace seals weekly, and recalibrate oxygen monitors monthly. Data dashboards hum on screens above the line. You watch yield percentages, waste volumes, and line speeds in real time. You notice that as production volume doubled, waste from overfilling climbed by 3%. You tackle this by tightening headspace tolerances and slowing the line by 5 bottles per minute, a minor sacrifice in throughput for a major gain in efficiency. Over the next week, you reclaim nearly 2% of lost product, translating into significant cost savings. Meanwhile, your sourcing spreadsheet from Section 2 informs quality control upstream. When an ethically certified vanilla extract arrived with a slightly off-white tint, QC flagged it before it reached mixing tanks. You reached back to the supplier, adjusting their drying process and preventing potential color drift in the final product. This end-to-end oversight ensures that scaling up doesn't dilute your brand's narrative of careful ingredient selection. On the warehouse floor, you deploy pallet sensors that verify stack stability. You record shock events during forklift loading and adjust pallet configurations to reduce sudden jolts. These proactive measures prevent breakages that once plagued early soda pioneers, whose wooden crates rattled over bumpy roads and cracked bottles before national highways improved transport. You also refine your employee training. Every new line operator undergoes a week of shadowing, learning not just how to press the start button, but why each gauge matters. They memorize key control points, syrup bricks, carbonation pressure, fill height, and cap torque. You empower them to hold the line at any sign of trouble, fostering a culture where quality trumps speed. As weeks pass, the line hums with confidence. You compare taste panels from early pilot runs to current production samples. The flavor profiles overlap almost perfectly. You witness that your recipe, once scribbled on napkins, now stands resilient under the pressures of scale. Before you close for the night, you pen a brief report, scaling success measured in consistent bricks, stable pH, and minimal waste. You outline next steps, evaluating a second production shift and exploring regional co-packing to reduce shipping miles. You tuck the report into your binder labeled Growth Chronicle, knowing this chapter of expansion is another milestone in your soda story. You dim the warehouse lights, letting the last conveyor belt whistle fade into silence. In that hush, you sense both satisfaction and anticipation, ready for the next wave of bubbles to meet eager lips around the world. You settle into the rhythm of long-term stewardship, where your soda has moved beyond novelty into a living legacy carried by countless open coolers and humming refrigerators. It wasn't so long ago, in 1955, that a small family-owned brewery in Wisconsin transformed its seasonal root beer into a year-round staple, proving that even regional sodas could flourish indefinitely when nurtured with consistency and creativity. You reflect on that milestone as you chart your own path toward enduring growth. Your first priority is customer loyalty, transforming casual tasters into devoted fans. You design a subscription program where members receive quarterly flavor journeys, exclusive small batch editions wrapped in bespoke packaging that feels like unwrapping a gift from an old friend. Each box includes tasting notes, behind-the-scenes stories of ingredient sourcing, and a limited edition coaster illustrated by a local artist. You imagine subscribers lining up at doorsteps, eyes sparkling as they discover each quarterly surprise. Meanwhile, you cultivate a community around your brand. You launch an online forum where soda enthusiasts can swap tasting experiences, post pairing ideas, like tamarind lime soda with grilled shrimp skewers, and vote on seasonal flavor experiments. Early adopters share photos of soda-infused cocktails adorned with edible flowers, and one member even proposes a tamarind chili soda that conjures images of street food stalls at dusk. You save that suggestion for later pilot testing, thrilled by the way your brand fosters collective creativity. Innovation becomes a guiding star. You allocate a small innovation fund and establish monthly fizz workshops in your warehouse's demo room, inviting mixologists, food scientists, and curious customers to co-create new concepts. In one session, a chef suggests infusing soda with toasted coconut chips, sparking an idea for a limited island dusk flavor. Another brings up the possibility of fermenting small portions of syrup to create lightly effervescent heritage batches that echo the fringe practice of small-town bottlers accidentally crafting mildly alcoholic drinks in the 1920s. You smile, knowing those workshops blend practicality with playful experimentation. Sustainability remains central to your legacy. You partner with a local glass recycler to ensure that every returned bottle is cleaned, sterilized, and refilled, reducing both waste and your carbon footprint. You recall that in the 19th century, soda fountains often collected and reused glass containers until they wore thin, a practice that modern single-use culture abandoned for convenience. Your revived bottle return program feels both nostalgic and forward-thinking, and customers respond enthusiastically to rebate incentives and branded return stations set up at community events. You also refine packaging for global considerations. Your design team tests lighter-weight glass alternatives and compostable label adhesives. You commission life cycle analyses that reveal your new bottles cut transportation emissions by 12%, a statistic you feature in your annual impact report. You know some critics warn that life cycle assessments can be manipulated, but you stand by transparent reporting, publishing raw data and third-party audits to back your claims. Expansion into new markets requires cultural sensitivity. You study taste preferences in neighboring regions, discovering that in one coastal province, drinkers favor sweeter, fruit-forward profiles. You adapt your signature recipe accordingly, dialing up agave sweetness and accentuating citrus notes with local bergamot extracts. When you introduce your adjusted formula, you include a small sticker explaining the regional twist, celebrating local collaboration rather than enforcing a one-size-fits-all approach. That respect for diversity resonates with both distributors and consumers. Long-term financial planning anchors your ambitions. You convene quarterly reviews with your finance team, forecasting capital for equipment upgrades, marketing initiatives, and innovation workshops. You model scenarios. What happens if sugar prices spike, or if demand doubles unexpectedly? You remember the sugar rationing of World War II, when soda producers pivoted to malt-based sweeteners under government directives, creating flavors now prized by collectors. That historical footnote underscores the importance of agility when external shocks arrive. Talent development ensures your company's future thrives beyond your own tenure. You launch a mentorship program pairing senior team members with newer staff, covering everything from recipe development to distribution logistics. You host annual retreats focused on creative problem-solving and leadership skills, including a collaborative taste test challenge where teams invent concoctions judged by an external panel. One year, a teen's Midnight Mango soda earned praise for its balance of sweetness and acidity, earning a small production run. Such successes demonstrate how collective genius can propel your brand forward. As your soda brand grows, you look toward legacy planning. You draft a vision statement that enshrines your core values, creativity, authenticity, and sustainability into your company's bylaws. You consult with legal advisors on structuring an endowed fund that will support ongoing sourcing of ethically harvested ingredients, ensuring that long after you've stepped back, the brand's commitment remains unwavering. Finally, you take a moment to stand in your production hall, watching pallets glide past, hearing distant bottling lines hum their steady cadence. You see the fruit of your labors, a team that embodies your ethos, a community that cherishes your creations, and a brand poised to endure. In that quiet dawn light, you realize that sustaining growth isn't merely about numbers, it's about cultivating a living, breathing culture that honors every bubble, every bottle, and every person touched by your soda. The air grows still as the final conveyor belt quiets, and you feel the gentle weight of fulfillment settling in your chest. You've journeyed from the spark of an idea, imagining that first fizzy sip, to guiding your soda through every stage of growth, mindful of flavor, people, and planet. Now, the pace softens, words become whispers, and the world dims to shades of deep teal and muted gold. Allow your thoughts to drift like bubbles rising through calm water, each one carrying a memory, the first triumphant taste test, the sharp tang of innovation, the hum of night owl sampling sessions under a lone desk lamp. You've gathered stories, forged connections, and crafted a living legacy that will ripple through time. Let the narrative of your soda settle like fine sediment at the bottom of a glass, bringing clarity and solace. In this moment, you're both creator and caretaker, having woven dreams and realities into every bottle label and every subscriber's unboxing delight. As you exhale, feel gratitude for the journey and confidence for what lies ahead. Tomorrow, fresh ideas will bubble up once more, but tonight, rest in the gentle knowledge that your fizz-filled vision stands ready to greet the world, one serene sip at a time.